I've spent the last 10 months traveling across this wonderful, great nation, letting people know who we are, what we are as teachers. And it's a rather funny thing, because I spend a lot of time in airport terminals. And when you spend time in airport terminals enough, you get to talk to people. And people ask me what I do for a living. And I tell them I'm a teacher. And inevitably the next question they will ask me is, well, what do you teach? We've all had that posed to us. And it's a relatively straightforward question, but it's a question that misses the priority of our profession, does it not? Because I tell them what I teach is not as important as whom I teach. I happen to teach teenagers who are afflicted with emotional learning disabilities. And teenagers, as we all know, are an interesting population of people. They're no longer children, but they're not quite adults. So I call them apprentice adults. And like all apprentice adults, they need the people here, the people in this room, to come into their lives. They need positive adult role models in their lives to help them make those right decisions. The young people I work with are considered at-risk population. They're considered at-risk, labeled at-risk, because they're at the highest risk of dropping out of school. But you know, when you think about that term at-risk, it's really misapplied, because it's really not our students who are at risk, it's we who are at risk. It's our nation who is at risk. Should they drop out of our schools? Should they not become the productive young people we want them to be? My students that I work with are unique in their own way because they suffer from many disabilities. They suffer from depression and anxiety and bipolar disorder and psychosis, the whole gamut of psychiatric illnesses. But if you really look at them closely, they have one thing that they share in common. They're all sad. And if you would have walked in my first block biology class, you would notice this 15-year-old girl with red hair and braces and freckles. And from a distance, she looks like any average teenager. But a closer inspection reveals a much different person, because she has scars on her legs, and she has scars on her belly, and she has scars on her wrists. She's a cutter. And if you were to ask her why she cuts herself, she'll tell you that it feels good. And she knows this to be a lie, and her teachers know this to be a lie. But yet we both know that the pain of that razor blade is not as painful as that greater emotional pain that she's, in her own perverted way, trying to release. She's sad. And if you were to walk into my second block, the Law in America class, you would see this 18-year-old young man. He's handsome, he's autistic, he's very intelligent. But he took his first sip of alcohol when he was 13, and he hasn't put the bottle down since. So he comes to school and he shakes, occasionally vomits, and he tries to hide little bottles of alcohol in the bathroom ceiling. Doctors have diagnosed him as being bipolar, psychotic, and depressed. They can't seem to agree on what's wrong with him, so they send him back to school. He too is sad. And the reason I speak of these two students here tonight is because they are just a small sample. They are a microcosm of what is wrong with our education system. Because as educators, we constantly hear that the big issues out there are how are we competing as a nation against Asia and Europe in math and science. We're being asked as educators on how do we agree to some kind of national curriculum, a national assessment. Those are issues. Well, those are not the important issues that should be dominating our discussion. Because the greatest challenge to our education system, the greatest challenge really to our nation, are the students I just described. Because they comprise the 1 million students who will drop out of our schools this year. 1 million. 1 million dropped out last year. A little over 1 million are expected to drop out this year. And why is that so significant if it's happening every year? Well, because each and every year that high school diploma becomes more and more valuable. I tell people that when my father was looking for a job 60 years ago, all he had to do was compete against people in the same neighborhood for a job. And when I was looking for a job 30-some odd years ago, I just had to compete against people from my same neighborhood or maybe my same state for a job. But the young people we work with today are competing against children from all over the world for a job. So the teachers today have a greater responsibility. The teachers today are faced with more challenges than ever before. Challenges that no generation of teachers have ever really faced, to the degree that our new teachers and our existing teachers and our administrators and our professors are faced with today. How do we provide all young people a quality education? How do we provide all young people the skills, both learning, communication, social, to move on to secondary education, to get a good vocational education or a good academic education? Therein lies the real challenge. And therein lies the reason why we as educators need to do something really dramatically different in the way we're presenting in our classrooms. That's why when I found out about eMINTS in London, and I found out about the connection with Smartboard in London, I said, wow, what a perfect marriage. What a perfect marriage of technology and application. Because everywhere I go as teachers, and everywhere I go as a teacher rather, I hear the criticisms that we don't have a real good accountability system out there. We need a better accountability system. We need a better assessment system. We need a better system of this, a better system of that. What I don't hear is what I heard in London, a delivery system. We actually have a program such as eMINTS and Smart Technologies, which does much more than just tell the teacher to do a better job. It provides a blueprint on telling and informing and instructing the teacher how to do it. That's what the teachers are thirsting for. That's what the new teachers are thirsting for. They're not looking to be criticized. They're not looking to have their heads chopped off. They're not looking to be told that they're no good. They're not looking to be told that they're going to be rated by their test scores. They want to be told, how do I do my job better? How do I become a better teacher? That's what they're thirsting for. It's what they're thirsting for in every state I have visited. Because teachers go into the teaching profession because they love children, because they have a nurturing heart. They want to bring the best out in everyone. And they want to bring the best out in themselves. But if we don't help them bring the best out in themselves, then they wither and become that teacher we all didn't want to have. They become that teacher who basically sits there and does very little. Why? Because he or she is not being motivated by programs such as eMINTS. That's what it really comes down to. And that's why it's been such a privilege to be here today.